In this episode of Marketing Masterclass, we're covering Deadrop, the vertical extraction shooter with a cyberpunk theme by Midnight Society, backed by Dr. Disrespect himself. In this episode, we'll cover the messaging, the lead generation strategy, and the originals being produced to market this game. This series is powered by Ethlizards. We're working together to try to help Web3 gaming studios become more successful because marketing is more than half the battle to make your Web3 game a hit. Let's get into it. The greatest strength that Deadrop has going for it and Midnight Society is the backing of Doc, one of the biggest gaming content creators of all time, with millions of followers and tens of thousands of people that watch him concurrently in his live streams. They have a built-in marketing engine that they can use essentially for free through his platform. And most importantly, he is still well respected and trusted within this space, so trusted that he can bring in other top gaming creators to collaborate with him, and they trust him even with a more risky venture like an NFT-powered video game. The greatest weakness of Deadrop and Midnight Society is the lack of focus in terms of marketing, messaging, and the game. The example on the screen is a user-generated content promo that features multiple game modes. It's expanding the scope of what the team has to support, where the core messaging is about a vertical extraction shooter. All of a sudden you have all of these side quests that make it so that your game maybe never comes out or comes out beyond the window of opportunity in the market. The greatest challenge Midnight Society will have to overcome is negative media coverage in terms of the financial and blockchain aspects of their game. I watched literally all 10 of the top 10 search results on YouTube. Most of them had commentary about the NFTs, the over-financialization, the hypocrisy of Dr. Disrespect, etc., focusing on the financial aspects of Deadrop. If you want to overcome this, I have a messaging suggestion to position Midnight Society and Deadrop as a crowd-funded project and the sale of NFTs contributing toward a larger goal in terms of crowdfunding. If that were the case, this wouldn't seem so much like maybe an NFT cash grab of sorts for Dr. Disrespect, but rather a game that's just trying to gain funding to be the hero in the new generation of game studios and game development. Messaging is the foundation for any games marketing or brand marketing for that matter. Deadrop does a great job of describing what it is. It's a vertical extraction shooter, but that's where the pros end in terms of its messaging. Great messaging doesn't just say what something is, it says why you should care. As you scroll down their website, for example, none of this tells me why I should care at all about this game, what value I get as a customer, what makes it different, really, from other video games? And what do I get out of it? I see that there is some looting here. Okay. I guess I have to read this small paragraph to understand what looting does in this game. Rush to the tower. It looks like driving a car might be unique for this game, and maybe I could go explore that further, but it's still unclear. There's no central theme here that says what's different about this game versus others. In my opinion, it's the fact that it's being crowdfunded by its users, a hardcore fan base for Dr. Disrespect that wants to see a different future for gaming where they have transparency with the developer, they control development to a certain extent, they test the game and help build it from the ground up so that this can be something different and better than what the rest of the gaming industry has to offer. None of that is here. It's only vertical extraction shooter, and we can barely see any of it on this page. This needs massive improvement in terms of the messaging, and this brand needs to answer the question clearly, why should I care? And it completely fails to do that. Midnight Society, the studio behind Deadrop, does a better job of communicating its value through messaging. It's creating the world's first vertical extraction shooter, so we know the answer to the question, what? And as you scroll down the page, it does say a bit why it's different than any other game studio, including things like transparency and open development. That's awesome, and focusing on its community. That's great. But when it comes to great messaging, the customer doesn't care about you. It should be all about the customer. This page should direct its messaging at the customer, at game developers, at gamers, and say what value they get by participating in what Midnight Society is building. Why should they care about the studio? Okay, well, the real answers are you're allowing gamers to fund your game. You're allowing them to give input on your development. You're allowing them to generate content in your game. You're kind of flipping the script on how game development works in both Web 2 and Web 3, and I don't see that clearly on this page right now. This just talks about what product you're making, not why it matters and what value I get as a customer when I participate in your product. If you can revamp this messaging, you can attract better developers, better partners, and more gamers that are looking for something different in the gaming industry. To provide a more specific suggestion to you, it's all about telling a story with both of your brands, both Deadrop and Midnight Society. You gotta pick a villain in a story, and I think that your villain is greedy Web 2 game studios and executives, and also maybe greedy Web 3 game studios and executives that are shilling crypto and NFTs to people in an unethical way. They release unfinished games, they don't listen to your feedback as a gamer, and you can't resell your game if you don't own it, right? And that's what Web 3 has to offer. You are the hero of the story as the customer that's engaging with Deadrop and Midnight Society's games. And your brands, Deadrop and Midnight Society's, are the guide that leads them to being the hero of the story. As the hero of the story, you as a gamer will approve the game before it's launched, for example. You as the hero of the story will test the game and give feedback from day zero to the developers and help them create the game of your dreams. And you as the hero of your story will be able to own your in-game assets, buy, sell, and trade them as you see fit. You're the hero as the gamer. You're the hero as the person participating in Deadrop or in Midnight Society. As it stands right now, your messaging doesn't make the customer the hero of the story. There's no clear villain in the story, and so therefore, all your marketing does is just say what your product is. Once again, you have to make the customer the hero. You have to let them know why they should care. And I think you have a clear narrative of who you position yourself against, the greedy gaming industries of Web 2 and Web 3, and who you can be as a guide to lead these gamers toward being the hero of their story, having a better outcome, and being able to play the games of their dreams on their terms. That's the story you're offering customers, and that's just nowhere to be seen in any of your marketing as it stands today. Once you have great messaging, generating leads, of course, is critically important for any gaming brand. And this big physical event for Deadrop was a way that you guys attempted to generate leads. You burned a lot of runway, but for what? Let me tell you a fun story. In the 2010s, I sat on the exhibit floor of PAX East with a major AAA game CEO. As we stood in the middle of his booth, and it was the biggest booth at that event, I asked him, "How do you think the event's going?" And he looked at me with a sober look and he said, "I feel like we just put a giant pile of money in the middle of this exhibit floor, we lit it on fire, and we're just hoping something happens." That was a cautionary tale for physical events that I never forgot. And as every day passed from the 2010s to today, physical events have become increasingly less relevant because for every dollar you spend at a physical event, you convert less and less customers as each day passes. So I have to ask myself, this physical event, what was the point of this? How was it paid for? Hopefully it was paid for by a sponsor and not you burning runway. The only justification you could have for this physical event to generate leads is maybe it was a dog and pony show for potential investors in the project. If so, hopefully you got those investors on the private side. If not, yikes. Well, you may say, well, it's for team building. We brought all the developers there and all our creators there to build relationships. Okay, that's an extremely expensive way to build relationships. There are cheaper ways to do this, like meet people at existing events and wine and dine them at a fraction of the cost. Certainly the justification for doing this physical event was not user acquisition, because any digital means, even traditional advertising on Facebook and Google, would generate a better ROI than this big physical event. Digital collabs are the greatest marketing super weapon that Doc has, Midnight Society, and as well as Deadrop. Collaborating with obviously gigantic streamers and bringing them into the fold is a really low cost way to promote your games and get over $100,000 if you were to have to pay for it for a sponsorship to get one of these guys every single stream to bring their audience into the fold with your games. Getting other influencers in there to provide feedback on game development builds a deeper connection with them in your game studio. Maybe they actually like it and care. And then this, most importantly, preserves your runway so that you can do major marketing events in the future around your launch window. Maybe in the launch window, you could justify doing a big esportsy type event or competitive event as a dog and pony show to maybe get investors into some sort of league for Deadrop. In the meantime, please, for the love of God, focus on digital collabs. This is a marketing superpower you should quadruple down on and kill physical events with fire. I painstakingly listened to all of the goobers on YouTube criticize Deadrop and Midnight Society for their game, and the current criticism across all of their videos is that the queue times take too long. I think that you're doing a good job creating Midnight Society events, so there's sort of a tent pole to get players in there and get the servers active during a specific window. However, this only helps during that window of time. I think that you should reduce access to the game, and so that you can run events with Doc and others in a digital collab, get tons of players on the server, have it be super active and a fun experience, and then you should cut off supply. What do I mean by that? Well, the less supply you provide of an early access game like this, the more demand there is for it. I've watched great games provide too much supply in the alpha and pre-alpha phase when I helped them with their marketing, and then users got fatigued on the game by the time it actually released and there was not excitement. You need to reduce supply. That will increase demand, and it will create a better user experience for people that go engage with your game, including YouTubers, streamers, and the media. That will help you defeat that criticism of long queue times. And last note, only do one event available, one mode available whenever you open up these event windows. Do not have multiple modes open because that exacerbates the issue with long queue times. Let's talk about your original strategy for the brand. One of the originals you're doing that's different than what a lot of folks do in game development, tip of the hat to you, is to have the developers speak directly to users like the example you see on screen. This one is just a video capture, if you will, of the developers talking to Discord server. I have to be honest with you, this is in the spirit of the right idea, but the execution is embarrassing. In today's day and age in 2024, you can't do an audio version of something like this. It has to be video-centric, especially for a high-fidelity AAA premium video game property like Deadrop that's backed by the king of gaming video himself, Dr. Disrespect. You either need to get Doc to host these events, hire a professional host. In either case, you need to produce a video show for your AMAs when you're engaging with your community. Let me show you an example of a show I made for a Web3 gaming studio that takes the idea you're doing but to the next level. Maybe you could go even further beyond that. Instead of just doing a Discord AMA, I would host an episode with the developers. I'd bring them on with me and I'd let them talk about what they're creating together. I'd even then pull up the assets they're working on the screen, pull up comments from the audience live, do live Q&A while literally showing off in-game assets and demos to the audience right then and there. This is a 2024 type of approach to doing like a developer streamer update rather than just having audio and having to listen to somebody drone on a Discord server. This also provides you with marketing collateral that you can show the public to show the current state of development so they feel like they're bought in on the concept. You guys have on your website that you are a transparent gaming studio. Well, how can you be transparent if you can't see your developers on the screen and you literally can't see what they're developing, like the example I'm showing you here? That's a massive improvement that you could make immediately. Here are my final thoughts. Midnight Society and Deadrop need to change the narrative on what their game is and what they're trying to accomplish by revamping their messaging. As it stands right now, the primary criticism is that you're financialized and you're making all the mistakes of the old school gaming industry. This is a cash grab, this is a scam, NFTs are over. All this stuff is dragging down on your brand and watering down the cool thing that you're building with this vertical extraction shooter. If you can position yourselves as the guide in the story, the old school Web 2 gaming industry and the scams in the Web 3 gaming industry as the villain, Your customer, the gamer, now becomes the hero of the story, where they can crowdfund a game that they really want to see happen. They can provide input on how it gets developed. They can literally influence the development of the game. They can even create content for the game themselves through user-generated content. Wow, the gamer is finally in control of the narrative, and you are the one that's enabling it as a brand. If you can refocus your messaging, everything you're doing can now make sense, be cohesive, and you can counter these negative narratives that are surrounding your game right now. I wish you all the best at Midnight Society. I want this to become the biggest first-person shooter ever, and I want to thank Ethlizards for powering this episode. They're trying to build a better Web3 gaming industry on the whole, and I appreciate you guys flagging Deadrop as a game for me to cover and do a marketing masterclass on. If you'd like to speak with my media company, Not Corrupt Media, about your brand, go ahead and go to notcorrupt.media today.